Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Retain, Grow, Thrive, the Growave podcast. I'm your host and president at Growave, Joe Fox. Today, I'm joined by someone that I personally admire in this industry, has an incredible history. As you can tell from the background in their image, they're likely an avid surfer, which we're going to dig
Yes,
into as well. But
absolutely.
Daniel Brady is the CEO, co-founder of Aretā, has a super interesting background. Highly educated, graduate from Harvard, and also previously in a previous life, a neuroscientist,
Yeah.
ML engineer. So there's tons of really, really cool stuff that we're going to dive into today. So, DB, thank you for coming on board today, and thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Joe. Happy to get into it. Let's do it.
Absolutely. So, can you just give everyone a little bit of a background? I mean, not
Yeah.
everyone that comes on the show is a ML engineer or a
Yeah.
neuroscientist. So, I'd
Yeah.
love to kind of dive into that and how that's translated into
Sure.
you co-founding Aretā.
Yeah. So I used to be a neuroscientist. So, did my undergrad, did my PhD, and did my postdoc. So I was like on the track to be a research scientist studying neuroscience, and I studied what developmental neuroscience is. So like how do brain early life experience, how does that shape the way in which your brain processes information for the rest of time? And what it really was about was I was studying learning. Like that's fundamentally what it was that I was studying. And at that same time of like doing all this neuroscience, there was this rise in machine learning, but not just like machine learning generally, which has always been around, but to actually be able to use it outside of an academic context. And so when I decided to leave academia, I left because to me, academia was like really, really slow. It was like it's not even a joke. It's like true. I found what my PhD thesis was on in my second year, and then I spent another 4 years proving that that was true over and over and
Wow.
over and over again.
Wow.
And so I left academia, and my friend was the CTO at a same day delivery startup. This is in 2013 when every other company startup was like a same day delivery startup.
Yes.
And I did a little bit of math for them and to help optimize their routing using basic stuff that I was doing all the time as a neuroscientist. And they're just like, okay, you're our first employee.
Wow.
and and so that then I then got addicted to like the speed and the watching, like you do this little change and all of a sudden thousands of orders are being rerouted according to like something that you design mathematically, and so I got addicted to that, and so I've been in tech ever since.
That's really, really cool, DB. And I'd love for you to tell a little bit more about that speed because I think
Yeah.
that really translates into what you're doing at Aretā like incredibly well. I mean, I'm obviously really good friends with Di on the team and
Yeah.
Megan and everything, and I really feel that's something that you guys are all very much about is like speed of execution and doing things properly. So can you dive in a little bit
Yeah.
more around how that translates?
Sure. So like there, I think speed and then just trying to take advantage of as much information as possible in order to make a really informed decision. Those are like the two guiding principles that we have. And so like when Zach, who's my other co-founder, is also a machine learning engineer, when we first started Aretā, we were like, there's so much information that is being collected about what people are doing and how they're interacting with brands. And yet, at any given time, whether it's a marketer or even an ops person, if they're doing routing and stuff like that, they're only looking at like a very, very narrow piece of that pie, and they're slow to react, right? Like you're human, so like
Yes,
you can only take so much information at one time, and so we're just like, well, machine learning models can be extremely reactive. They can also look at so much more of a breadth of data, and so perhaps those things combined in the context of marketing can like really level up how well you can target people because they're just like it's so much faster and there's so much more breadth that you can take advantage of there.
absolutely. And I think it's so prevalent. Like to your point, there is so much data available. There are so many, machine learning and AI technologies available that allow businesses to really like power that and use that for business
Yeah.
intelligence, as opposed to just looking at it, having an opinion, and actually not crunching that data. So I think that's
Right.
really cool. In a previous life, I owned an agency, and then I moved over and worked for a machine learning company based out of Norway. This is
Mm.
quite some time back, a few years before COVID started, and I really loved the sort of like cutting edge stuff they were doing with machine learning, and they did a whole
Yeah.
bunch of stuff with the University of Oslo. So I can kind of relate to you a little bit about that, translating it out of
Yeah.
academia and then translating that into business intelligence. That was a really cool company to work for. DB, what's the biggest, I guess, kind of focal point for a reader? Like,
Yeah.
obviously, you're doing a lot in terms of like data and actionable data and everything for
Yeah.
brands. And I know you have an incredible partnership with Klaviyo,
Yeah.
which we value too. So, can you tell us a little bit about how all of that kind of works?
Yeah. I think the way that like to think about it is, and this is the way that Zach and I designed it when we first started, is to like take a step back and be like, what is the most impactful thing that you can do as a marketer? And the first thing that you can do is determine who is your audience at any given moment in
Yep.
time to market to. And that's like first principles. And so like Zach and I weren't marketers, but we're just like, well, what matters is who are you going to outreach to right now? And then after that, you make that decision. Then it comes down to the content and the offer and the branding and all that kind of stuff. But that first part of the audience part is the most important. And it's really interesting because like we live in this Gen AI world where like everything's about messages and offering, and like that's super, super important. Like, to have a conversion rate go from 1% to 1.5% is a big deal. But when we took a step back, we're just like, what if you change your addressable audience from like 40% of your CRM list to 60%? Like that is like
Yep.
a much, much bigger pace. And so that's exactly where we
Absolutely.
sit. So
Yep.
what we do is we do AI customer segmentation, and it's really all about like the timing. So it's all about the targeting and the who on that list. And then our brands, our agency partners, and even now with Klaviyo, they have some new agentic stuff. Like they focus
Yep.
more on the messaging, but ours is really like, if you give us your list by channel, we will tell you what is the maximally addressable audience at any given time. Here's who you can email right now. Here's who you can text. Here's who you can send a postcard with Postpilot. And like, there's like, that's a maximum amount of revenue that you can give at any time. And it like waxes and wanes depending upon how the consumers are interacting with you, the time of the year, all that kind of stuff. And then you can therefore focus more on like the offer and the messaging yourself.
I love that, DB, and I think it's really cool because, I think as a business, like if we take our, SaaS and our tech lens off and all of those sorts of things, as a business, providing, a product to consumers, it's like the thing I really like about Aretā is that not only are you helping them, essentially generate more revenue, but you're also saving them a lot of money. Because
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that is really important to address here is because you're cleaning up that addressable market
Yeah.
and identifying who is actually a proper, ICP of those brands, that I imagine would significantly reduce the costs of your
Yeah.
SMS counts, your email counts, and your subscription costs.
Totally. And so, every channel has a cost. And for channels like SMS or for direct mail, the most expensive part of it is actually the cost itself. Postcards are not cheap to send. For email, sending emails are cheap, but the ultimate deciders of whether or not your emails get seen are the inbox providers. And so the
Yeah.
cost in the email sense is this concept called deliverability, which is like if you just spam your list, no one will ever see any of your messages. And so there's
Yes.
always this kind of like balance of targeting of like there's a cost and a benefit to any send that you send on any channel. And like it's trying to figure out exactly that kind of optimal mix. And so that's what we do is like by per channel we figure out what is that optimal mix. And it's either sometimes it's optimizing for revenue versus cost, sometimes it's revenue versus deliverability, whatever it is, but like that's the whole goal.
I love that. And I feel like Arita has grown so quick. Like
Yeah.
that like I'm very plugged into the kind of like partnership ecosystem, having recently gone from, specifically
Yeah.
partnerships into more of this presidential kind of like leadership role. But I know how quickly you guys are growing. I know how well respected you are in the ecosystem by agency and tech partners alike. So I'd love to just kind of shine a little bit of a light around what you believe is fueling that growth so
Yeah.
quickly, because we have a lot of, I get a lot of really young, kind of founders here that are having, incredible success within their first kind of like 6 to 12 months. But then
Hmm.
there's also a lot of kind of like legacy platforms that may have stagnated in growth. So I think it'd be really
Yeah.
cool for both sides of that equation to hear what's driving a lot of your growth.
Yeah, I think what's really, really important here is to really understand who is your customer base, right? So who's that ICP that you really care about, and how can you best serve them? And so, you know, we're a machine learning company, so brands that have more and more data we can and have more and more history of marketing we can be very effective for. So like, whether it's like Spanx or Evereve or Tracksmith, something like that, like you can deliver a lot of value because their list has so much variability, and so there's so much data that needs to be used in order to maximize that list. But we're also extremely partner centric, so a lot of the brands come through us actually through their agency partners that they use, their retention agencies or the dev agencies that they're using. And the thing is that like we're really focused on like an extremely difficult problem that basically everyone has agreed that machine learning is better than humans at, which is like this like more precise targeting.
Yeah.
But it also doesn't step on anybody's toes. It's just like, as a person who's run an agency, as a CRM manager, you're using these recency segments, who's clicked in the last 90 days to determine who you're targeting. And that's not the right answer, but it's just like you have so many other things that you need to focus on that like it kind of gets left in the dust, and you're just like, I understand that I'm not optimal here, I'm losing, but I need to like come up with a creative for my next sale. I need to work with merchandising on this, that, and the other. And so we're just like, hey, keep doing all of that really, really important work. That's also so critical. We're just the machine learning nerds on the side here who will take care of that like really naughty problem and make sure that it's optimized all the time. Make sure that we're constantly testing. And that just really resonated with both our brands and our agencies that like this is a long standing problem. This is not a new problem. It's actually one of the oldest problems that's out there. It's not very sexy, but if you put like the most cutting edge machine learning and math towards a not sexy problem, what actually delivers a ton of value. And that's ultimately what they all see.
I love that. Yeah, and it all makes so much sense. I think it's fascinating talking with you because I can kind of like understand a very small snippet, talking back of the way understanding the way the brain thinks and
Yeah.
everything like that. I can certainly see that. So that's super impressive. Cool. So another thing that I'd really love to kind of, just dive into, I love getting everyone's insights on what they feel is happening in the ecosystem. And I think
Yeah.
DB, you're perfectly positioned with your background in machine learning and AI to
Yeah.
really give some cool insights here. So obviously, there's all sorts of things happening in the Shopify ecosystem being driven by AI. This, integration between Shopify and OpenAI and ChatGPT, and the list
Yeah.
goes on and on. Things like Lovable that were reduced.
Yeah.
Announced their kind of thing the other day. Obviously, that's going to impact agencies, but in general, I would love to just kind of get, even if we were just to say, what are your 12-month predictions
Yeah.
around what we're going to see as we move further and further as an ecosystem and lean further into AI?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I have some strong opinions here. Some of which I don't know if they're necessarily controversial, but they're like slightly different. So just because like
Yep.
I know a lot of them that is under the hood here, is that so like there's this big obsession with the road to like extremely personalized marketing, like on a per person basis that things are personalized. My view is that it's actually going to be a balanced mixed, right? So that's not that controversial. It's just like there are things that a brand will want to say that is a standardized message. Like the way that I always talk about it is that like Super Bowls are not personalized. Super Bowl ads are not
Yes.
personalized, right? And they're
Yep.
so extraordinarily effective, and it's something that like generates cultural conversation, right? Like Coca-Cola's logo is not personalized. It's like you see that on a billboard, you're thirsty, you get a Coca-Cola. And so what I actually think is going to be the future in the next 12 months is really about the balance of those sorts of things. So if we think about it in terms of like now going more into marketing, like campaigns versus flows, I think that that's kind of where you'll see this big divergence where like a lot of what are considered campaigns, it's like, how can you get these big effective messages that are not necessarily that personalized, but like you want to make sure that you can find the right audience in the smartest, most intelligent, most efficient way. I think a lot of AI is going to be going in that direction. That's kind of where we sit. And then I
Yep.
say on the other hand, there's going to be like, okay, but now this customer is actually interacting with me at this exact moment. How do I interact with that customer? And I think that's where all like the Gen AI and the agentic stuff like really, really shines. And so if someone's visiting your website and they want to like have some sort of customer support ticket or asking about recommendations of like this pair of boots versus that one, like that I think is a
Yep.
perfect place for like that kind of personalized interaction, balanced with the fact that you're just like, we're launching this new product and we
Yes.
want it to see the most number of people possible, and we're not changing what that product is per person. So like, how do we like effectively use AI in order to make sure that that is the maximum audience at the time? And like, what do you reach out a second time or third time or on a different channel? What is that marketing mix that really makes it super effective? I think like from a marketing perspective, that is like where things will be in the next 12 months. And then what I really hope, I think this will take a little bit longer than 12 months, is I want to see like a whole closed loop in terms of the data. Like, how does
Yep.
inventory and fraud and all that kind of stuff inform your merchandising decisions, which informs how you acquire customers, which informs how you then retain them? Like having that whole closed loop, which is like this golden Shangri-La that like, you know, we've been trying to build for so long. It's like,
Yeah.
well, now there's so much data, now there's so much ML. You can have a system where it's like acquire the customer, market to them, retain them, make decisions based on merchandising in the future based on that, and have this like huge virtuous cycle.
Yeah, no, I very much love that. I get a lot of people's insights, doing the podcast and having these conversations, but I love that. And I think for me, on a selfish level, that's what I'm most excited for, is to see what that entire actual picture
Yeah,
looks like. I think for the first time in history, we're probably actually going to be as close as we can be at any given time to understand that complete journey.
yeah,
And I think
totally.
that's going to be incredibly exciting. And, from a grow wave perspective, that's exciting for us on the retention piece, right? It's like being able to really, really fine tune every single one of our features to match what those journeys look like. So that's
Mhm.
super exciting. Um, DB, I'd be amiss to not dive into this, and obviously, big surfboard in the
Yeah,
background. I believe you grew up on the West Coast. Is that
I
correct?
did. I did.
Yeah.
I grew up in LA and lived in the Bay Area, but now I live in New York City. And so in my New York City apartment, I have four surfboards. So it's
Oh,
like what
yeah,
takes up most of the space on the wall are my
yeah.
surfboards. And I do surf in New York City, which most people don't think you can do, but you can. It's actually a great surf community here. And so yeah, that's like my major passion because I have a family, I'm working a lot, and so if it's not those two things, then it's probably trying to get some surf in.
I love that. Being from Australia, it's hard to
Yeah,
not,
of course.
kind of surf. You grow up surfing. I'm in Texas now. Fortunately, we don't have any surf here. I mean,
Oh no.
Galveston is not a place you'd want to go, but apparently they've opened up. And sorry to diverge, I just find it
Yeah,
fascinating. They've opened up one of these wave parks up in
sure.
Waco, so I'm
Yeah, I've
hoping
heard
that,
about it. Yeah.
yeah, go check it out. So, do you in New York? Is it like, are you using the sort of like wave pools, or is there actually dedicated cool spots? If
Yeah,
it's a secret, you don't have to give it
no, oh
away.
no, no, it's not nothing in New York is a secret. It's too big. There is like a wave pool in New Jersey, which I think opened, just before the pandemic, which I haven't been to. But
Yep.
New Jersey and all of Long Island, including New York City, has like a ton of surf. And so, yeah, like the most famous place to surf in New York is called the Rockaways. It's actually right next to JFK Airport. And so
Okay.
if you would just go the opposite direction as opposed to going to Manhattan, if you just went
Yep.
the opposite direction, you hit a surf community. And it's like
Wow.
where the Ramones are from and stuff like that. So it's like has like this
Yep.
like rich history and like it's really good surf. And then as you go further and further onto Long Island, like in Montauk and all these like super famous places, that it's like the East Coast, as someone from the West Coast, and the East Coast gets so much trash about the quality of surfing because it's so much more storm dependent and it's so much
Yep.
less consistent. I love East Coast surfing. I love surfing in the winter. I love wearing like a thick wetsuit and it's snowing outside. It's awesome.
I love that. Yeah, I was going to say you'd have to have a very, 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 very warm wetty to be able to pull that
Yeah.
off, I imagine.
Yes.
With
Yeah,
the hood
I
and
do.
everything, with the hood
100%.
and everything. Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like, the last time I saw that was Tasmania.
Mm,
Like I
cool.
didn't surf in it, but a couple of friends went out, the hoods, everything like zipped right up, and you get
Yeah.
some pretty big waves down there if the swell's right, for sure. If you get like the right conditions, some of those waves are pretty big and pretty scary. Hence me not going out there. I'm good in like the 3 to 4 to
Yeah,
maximum sort of
sure.
6 foot
Yeah.
stuff. I like
Yeah.
the shorter stuff, but and closer to being on shore. But yeah, don't get to do it enough in Texas, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
on that note, DB, I always like to understand this from people who are, obviously highly intelligent. You're obviously really highly, emotionally and intellectually intelligent. Is the surfing for you a way of quieting, talking about the way the brain works? Is that a way for you quieting all of the noise
Yes,
and kind of being present?
absolutely. It's like the best way for me to focus. Like I think it's even something where I won't realize how much I needed it until I get out there, and it's
Yeah.
just like because there's I mean you've done it. It's just like you can't you can't do anything but focus on where you
Yes.
are and read the waves and all this kind of stuff. Like your mind can't wander. Otherwise, you're not going to surf. You're just going to be sitting on a board in the water.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like it really focuses you to kind of be like very, very present. And like that, it's almost like a meditation for me, really. It's like I
Yes.
go out there. And so even if I don't necessarily have a great day, it's in terms of like the rides and stuff like that, it's still always an amazing experience just because it feels so meditative.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's awesome. Okay, TB. So I feel like we could chat a long time. There's
Yeah,
a lot of shared
this is great.
aligned interests here, and I'd definitely love to do a part two in 12 months, and hopefully we're able to talk about that, golden circular journey and what that
Yeah.
looks like and what tools are helping to fuel all that. But one question that I also love to jump in here, I know I see Diana and Megan at almost every event that's there. They
Yes.
really, get out there, and as I'm sure you do. And I feel like in our vertical and in our industry specifically, we're probably some of the most avid travelers, like in terms
Yes.
of the volume and the mileage and all of those sorts of things. So I'd love to get this last piece of thinking and advice from everyone who's on the show. Um, and you can't say a person, just to preface it, and I'm assuming it's not the surfboards because they're a bit big to travel with, but what's the one thing that you can't live without when you're traveling? And that can be leisure or work.
Yeah. I mean, I always this is also something meditative too. I always need to bring stuff to do some exercises when I'm out there.
Yep,
Even if it's like a super packed conference, even if I'm like at Shop Talk and like it's just gonna be crazy, it's like I want to go to the gym or something or
yep,
go for a run. Like anything like that is like absolutely because it's like it's so much work and like I was explaining this to my wife the other day that like you never stop when you travel, right?
yes.
There's no turn off. The dinners are fun and the happy hours are fun, but there's still work. Everything's still work. And so it's like how do you find that time to kind of like decompress? And it's like either you meditate or you like work out or you do something. And so that's always the focus. I always make sure to like have a bunch of room in my suitcase for that.
And you take like bands and all of those sorts
Yeah,
of things, and
exactly.
yeah,
Bands
yeah,
and like like some workout clothes and some running shoes. Like I do all that
yeah.
kind of stuff just to focus on that when I'm there.
Yeah, I love that. I'm very much the same. I stopped drinking over a year
Mm.
ago now, and so for me, I kind of like have translated because I did a lot of networking at those happy
Yeah,
hours, right? So you'd be there, and if you're there until the late hours, you get a lot of deals done, you build a lot of partnerships, you build a lot of friendships. But since this, I've always been an avid gym goer, always
mm.
into my health and fitness. And I feel, particularly in the last 12 months, I've really taken that to another level. I think
Cool.
I've only had 6 days without any strenuous exercise
Wow,
in the last 12 months. So
that's pretty good.
my wife and I are up at 4 a.m. every morning.
Wow,
She's an attorney, works remote on the West Coast, so she has a little bit of time in the mornings before everyone comes online. Growave being based in Central Asia, I have a lot of early meetings with our C-suite, and so I'm very much the same. I'm like, it doesn't matter where I am, if I'm at a conference, if I'm anywhere, I will specifically make sure the hotel has a gym. If I've
yes,
got a bit of time to kill before going to the airport, I'm going to hit the gym. If it's like shop talk, great example, because I feel everyone starts that little bit later because they've been up super late the night before.
totally.
But I'm always up early, getting a coffee, seeing everyone kind of straggling around the tables at like 5
Dipping.
a.m.
Yeah,
And I'm straight out there trying to find a gym. There's a couple of good gyms in Vegas actually. Maybe we can do that at Shop
for
Talk
sure.
next year. But yeah, I love that. I think it's so important. And I think that's another thing that I try and highlight on the show is like it's so important for everyone who works in our space, whether you're agency or SaaS side or brain side. We're all under so much pressure and we're all
Yes.
connected all of the time because of these. And I think it's really important to have those activities that, not only help you physically, but help you mentally, to sort of get through things and avoid the burnout.
100%. And as a former neuroscientist, I know lots of people who actually study this sort of stuff, and so I can say definitively it's extraordinarily important. And so I'm not a medical doctor, but like you can have this as a prescription that you should 100% do this. It will make such a difference in your life for sure.
Love that. Love that. DB, thank you so much for coming on board. I know the audience are going to get a ton of value out of this. I think I can speak for Diana and Megan and say if you're an agency partner and you're not partnered with Aretā, please reach out to them. I'll make sure they're linked into there. But Daniel, what's the best place for people to connect with you, to connect with
Yeah.
Aretā? If we've got, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of our customers and in various verticals are watching this, but I know that they're super interested because we have such a large crossover with Klaviyo as an example. So Aretā
Yeah.
makes so much sense. So what's the best way for our customers essentially to check out Aretā?
Yeah, I mean, so you can go to Orita.ai. That's our homepage. We also have a Klaviyo app, and so what we always do for all of our brands and agencies is that as an official Klaviyo partner, you can connect your Klaviyo instance to us in a matter of a minute or less. And what we'll
Wow,
do is we'll build all the machine learning algorithms and run basically a big audit on your email program to see if machine learning can help. And it's really important because like there's companies that are too small, they don't have enough data, they don't have enough history, like machine learning doesn't make sense for them. And so we always like to have a really good idea of like how much value can we bring to the table. And so we do these free audits, connect in a couple minutes, get a audit within like a week or so, and then we can see if we can help out.
amazing. Love that. Thank you so much. And audience, just so you know, I'll make sure everything's linked in the show notes that we've discussed today. And yeah, DB, thank you so much for coming on board. I really enjoyed this conversation. I look forward to hopefully either being able to hit the gym or hit the surf
Yes,
with you at some point. But
absolutely.
I definitely look forward to doing a part two of this and we can chat about those predictions.
Yeah, thanks so much, Joe. It was a pleasure being on.
Thank you so much. Audience, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Retain, Grow, Thrive. Highly encourage you to check out Aretā. Amazing team, as you can see, amazing founder, and the team over there are, some of my personal friends. They're doing incredible work. I think it's so important that SaaS, apps in the Shopify ecosystem not only assist with building revenue and helping you increase GMV, but also really helping you save money. And I know Aretā is one of those tools. So please check out the links below. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you again on the next episode of Retain, Grow, Thrive.